Okay, welcome to the first episode of OperaTuneiTe, where we give you music, opera, everything opera, and of course, some tea. On today's
Yes.
episode, our first episode, we will be interviewing the co-creator and host, Yvonne Maria Feliciano. So without further ado, we will get right to it. All right, let me take a sip real quick.
All right.
All right. So, first question: where were you born?
Ooh, where was I born? I was born on the southern. I'm joking. No, I am from a kind of I guess rural city in Connecticut, Waterbury, Connecticut. I was raised and born there, and yeah, it's pretty much your average New England home. The weather is the weather, the seasons are the seasons. But yeah, so that's pretty much. I was born in Waterbury, Connecticut.
Connecticut, our neighbor. So, what is your favorite word? I know, interesting question, right? What's your favorite
Ooh.
word?
Okay, so my favorite word would have to be, and I'm gonna tell you why, of course, is dingbat.
Not dingbat.
It literally is dingbat, and I say this because it is in reference to my mother. My mom is a very colorful, animated individual. I'll just say that because most likely she's gonna hear this, and I don't want her to kill me. But my mom, instead of being one of those parents that use profanity, my mom would select kind of these words, and then it just became like comical over time. She never called me a dingbat. It specifically was for my younger sister. So it was always like, Tyra, you dingbat. Like, so
I like that
I
word,
literally
dingbat. I think I'm feeling that. Sorry, mom, I'm stealing your word.
so it still makes me, crack up because even like I think Thanksgiving passed and I'm pretty sure my mom threw dingbat out. So so it's definitely dingbat.
I love that word. Okay, so in general, what is your, let's say, top three turn offs?
Like in general, like could it be like across the
That
spectrum?
across the spectrum, it could be, people chewing too loud,
Oh.
bad breath,
Oh, all right. So this is interesting because normally somehow I am always deeply annoyed about something. But I mean if those who know me. But I would have to say the first thing of annoyance to me is um I would have to say New York drivers. That's the number one. Like, I'm sorry. I am from Connecticut, so when we get our licenses, it's a hard test. It's a very hard exam. It is not. I've seen people literally. I don't mind me going off this little tangent, but
fine.
I know someone who was going for their license, and I mean, mind you, he practiced. He practiced. I mean, I helped him. And on his driving test, it was in Queens, and he drove off, and I'm in the car. I'm like, "Ooh, Lord, he need a prayer." So I was in there, I'm praying a little bit, and then I see him come back, right, and it was in the summer, so his windows are down,
Okay.
and so I hear the instructor say, "Can you turn right here and park in this spot?" This boy, oops, this person this person parks in 3 spots.
Not
One
one, not
time.
two, but three. Okay.
3 slanted. And then the instructor is saying, just turn the car off. So I'm literally in my car and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not gonna hear the last this all the way home. Like I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't even take the test. When I'm telling you, they were in the car for a minute, and I was like, oh, he's probably letting him know about other schools and everything. And he comes back to the car and he passed. Now I'm sitting over here thinking that, you know what, that instructor was a dingbat. It's a dingbat. There we go. There you go. He was a straight up dingbat, because when I'm telling you, I was seeing all these people get their licenses, I was just confused. So my number one annoyance would be New York drivers. Sorry for the long, elaborated story.
But well, you heard me on the phone the other day when I was driving, so you have no complaints about that from me. You heard me on the phone, so you can only imagine. All right, moving right along. Interesting question. What profession other than music would you like to attempt, and why? And then what would you that you would not like to attempt, and why?
Okay, so I consider myself, and have been told once or twice, that I am somewhat of a Renaissance man. I like to have my hands involved in a lot of different things, not at the same time, but I love to acquire some type of skill, or I love to basically read and like decipher things and understand why things are the way they are to like my best ability. So I would have to say that would lead me to go into the world of archaeology or a museum curator, because I have such a love for history and artifacts. Like my Instagram, if you go to the search page, it literally is like Egyptian art, jewels from other countries, religious works. Like it's full of just a whole bunch of things you would literally see in a museum. So, and that's always been my dream. Literally, like I was going to the pediatrician and she's like, "What do you want to be when you grow up, Yvonne?" And I'm like, "I want to be an archaeologist." And she's looking at me like, who is this?
Right, who is this?
Yeah. So yeah. As for what I wouldn't want to do, is I wouldn't want to do anything that is me servicing the public, like dealing with the public on a daily basis. I would just be, that would just be a nightmare for me. Like that would be hell for me. There's just no way. So yeah, it's that.
Completely understand. Worked like that for years of my life, so I completely get it. All right, moving right along. What is your vocal classification, if any?
Well, this topic is very, I don't think about it often, but unfortunately, because of our industry, you have to. But I am categorized as a countertenor, which is a high male voice, the highest of the male voices. And I've heard certain countertenors use, like, whether it's sopranos, alto, contralto. I like it better, and how I would appreciate it better is if your voice type goes before countertenor. I think that that's something that kind of would mirror how we considered, 17th century singers, which a lot of countertenors sing their repertoire. Kind of you would see soprano castrato. So why not have soprano countertenor or contralto countertenor? So it's just kind of like it still fits into, that tessiture of the voice. So yeah.
I'm here for it. Okay, and also, I guess to piggyback on that question, if you had to put it in a fach as far as light, lyric, spin tone, dramatic, which one would you consider yourself?
Oh, that's even hard. Okay, so I have a bit of a problem. My specific countertenor voice is not a small voice. So I have gotten the word dramatic attached to my name a lot, and specifically now that I'm in school. And the thing that I am aspiring to add to the new dramatic is a coloratura after. So being a dramatic coloratura countertenor, I feel is something that I accept that identity.
Perfecto. Okay, so I guess to piggyback off that again, how did you know you were a countertenor as opposed to maybe a tenor with a very, very high register or something like that?
I would have to say, I mean, when we go through puberty, the voice shifts and it breaks. And, there are cases where it doesn't, and there are cases where it shifts late. And then, I do believe that there are male singers out there that have high voices that if they have continued singing that way, as life progresses and whatever they decide to do with music, I feel that it's some type of reinforced, now you've built it into the voice. So I think, I don't know, that's really difficult, Terrence.
I mean, you don't have to, it's just something to ponder on.
What? So basically, hold on. So basically, you're asking me, when did I know I was one?
Oh, well, I guess that would be a better question.
Okay, so when I knew I was a countertenor, or I was a male that had a very unique high voice, was in the 6th grade. It was in a course class in middle schools, in all middle schools in Connecticut. I'm pretty sure any schools over the world, like, you have to take a music course. Like, it was recommended for each year you were there. So I was surrounded by music, like, really early. And there was this one day we were singing, I forget the choral piece, but the sopranos had such a beautiful line, as they always do, because they're always given the melody.
Amen to that.
And I was just so enamored with what we were listening to and singing that I was mimicking the girls, and I was mimicking almost the entire year, until the one day that he was walking through and he heard me singing it. I was scolded, actually. Boys don't sing that. You sing with the boys, you don't sing with girls. And when I see how damaging that is, as especially coming from an educator, I mean, now they probably wouldn't get away with it, but I mean, this is in the 90s. So it was difficult to be under that. It's like I knew the identity, and ever since then, because I do feel I have a rebellious tendency sometimes, most times, I said, I'm going to continue singing this way, and you're going to listen to me regardless. And so, yeah, that's when I knew.
That's interesting that you say that, because educators would know that they're very, especially, on our brother continent of Europe, it was standard practice, Vienna Boys Choir, all kinds of English boy choir. So it's interesting that here that they didn't encourage you. Like, I come from a boy choir background. So to tell somebody that they're not supposed to sing high because they're a boy, I mean, ignorance at its finest. But I digress. We're gonna leave it alone. Yes. So what was the very first aria that you sang?
Ooh. The very first aria I sang was Bellini's Vagaluna.
Oh, da, 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 da. Yeah, yeah.
That was my very first aria.
Really?
And it was, oh my gosh, you should have seen my recital singing that aria. So I'm going to throw this out there too. I have not been one of those people who always had kind of like classical music in my life. Mm-hmm. I knew it existed. I grew up Catholic, so a little bit of kind of what I consider classical is really not classical. But I grew up listening to that. So I had kind of this false understanding of what classical opera was. So I was originally going to school to be a vet, and that didn't work out, because then I was like, I want to become a physician. And so I went to this school, and I was on my way to be like a geriatric physician. And I auditioned for choir. Long story short, I had no idea of what it was. So when I performed that Vagaluna aria, I'm walking into we didn't have a student center, but it was like somewhere by our cafeteria. We didn't even go there about that. But they literally was having juries in there towards the end, like, what you've presented for the semester. And everyone's wearing these suits and these beautiful gowns and hair's done up. And we're in Florida and it's hot. So, and I didn't know what I was really getting into. So, I walked in with my little shorts on, little flip-flops. I had
not sure.
I remember I had a bright Pokemon t-shirt on. Pikachu on the front.
Okay, can't go wrong with Pikachu.
And I literally sang my first jury, that aria, in that getup. And when I'm telling you, they all, when I walked in, the shock, the shock. But the better shock was once I started singing. So it was a really good experience. It was my first attempt at opera, and yeah, looking back at it, I would love to even maybe pick it up, kind of singing in this Fach, because I sang that as a tenor. So it'll be interesting, actually.
Oh, that's interesting. So at this moment, we're going to take a brief break, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
let you get a sound clip of Mr. Yvonne singing some Albinoni, and then we'll be back. All right, we are back. So, have you always wanted to be an opera singer?
No. I've always wanted to be something in the medical field. My mom has been working in a hospital, as well as my father. My mom actually, it's such a funny story, because my mom has always been, and I mean still is, is a very big inspiration in my life. Being a woman of color and having to overcome so many obstacles, specifically living in Connecticut. My mom has come over a lot of adversity, specifically with education. Very smart woman. And she doesn't realize that I always aspired to be as smart as her. So I also, I guess, reading a lot of medical things and trying to and understanding things early, that was kind of like my jump start into like, I need to do medicine, and like, what's the best for my mom to make her proud? Become a doctor. So that was like my first aspiration.
Okay. All right. So, who would you consider your favorite voice teacher?
Ooh. Ooh. Oh, this is easy. This is easy. I say that because I've had a few. My favorite voice teacher would have to be Mrs. Maria McDonald, who was my first voice teacher. We all have our first vocal mamas. If they are out there, we salute you all, the good ones. I went into this school not knowing how to read music, knowing what a ledger line was, where the note names are. And her husband really took me under their wing. They even created like a class for me to learn the rudiments. And then put me in theory with like these musicians, like literally that have been reading music their entire lives. So that thought of like intimidation. But she helped me along the way. She always encouraged me. She made me feel smart in something I knew nothing about. And the most important thing is that she saw how unhappy I was singing tenor. She realized that, not saying I thought I had a very beautiful tenor voice. And I mean, it must have, because they saw it. They made me switch out of a major to move into music. They were the ones who, hey, we think that you're not following your true path. Like, you are talented in this, and we just see that spark in you. And she was all behind that. But going back to the countertenor thing, she saw how unhappy I was, and she really was. I think we're gonna have a talk about it. And being a countertenor, at the school we went to, in the dormitories, we used to have a music suite. And it was so nice because it was like everybody in the suite. It was literally a 4-bedroom, and it was 6 of us, so 2 people in a room. It was so dope. We had our own bathroom, living room. It was such a dope campus. And they would always hear me sing in the shower. And I'm guilty of that. And one day, somebody knocked on the door because this was not a co-ed dormitory. This was a Catholic school. So women were not allowed to be in the male dormitories. That was a big, you're in trouble. I mean, people have gotten caught. That's another day. But
Right.
then an RA knocked on the door and said, "Is there a girl in this room? Because we hear, oh, there's a woman singing, like, you know." And they're like, "No, that's Ivan or Ivan." And it's just so funny because I went up to her and I said, "Hey, Mrs. McDonald, I could do this crazy thing where, like, I can imitate you." And, you know, she just looked at me. She's like, "All right."
Right.
She opens up the piano. We go up a scale. She takes me to a high D.
Woo!
And at this time, I'm just like, you know, of course my throat is like, what she wants, how is she kept telling me to go? Like, this is so weird. She grabs another professor. And mind you, I didn't know this woman's first name. Like, she was just known Professor Osterman. So it's like, I was in the total shock. Like, she's like, "Becky, you have to listen to this." And I'm like, "Becky?" Like, I'm just like, out of all names, Becky? Like, I thought at least with a last name Osterman, I was going to hear, like, you know, like, Brumhilde Osterman. But
Okay.
instead it was Becky. Like, but anyways, hi, Dr. Osterman. But she literally sat down and she's like, "Do the same thing you did before." And I literally go up the scale and I'm singing, and then Becky's eyes gets huge. And then they just like, "All right, go do what you need to do. The lesson's over. I need you to come back. My husband needs to hear this," because her husband was the chair. He hears it, and then they're just both amazed. And then from there, it's like, I started singing countertenor. So, and thanks to her. So she's my favorite voice teacher, hands down, hands down. None of them compare. Unfortunately, I don't use a lot of the techniques she taught me anymore because it's been so many years. But thank you, Mrs. McDonald, for just being there and being the advocates and just the teachers that have just a great sense of humility and compassion and empathy.
More.
You truly,
Yeah.
yeah,
More.
you're more. It's thank you from the bottom of my heart.
So to piggyback off that question, could you speak about, I guess mainly from a technical aspect, your switch from tenor to countertenor, like if any, did
Oh, I
you
love
experience
this.
any difficulty, or was it easy, or?
Oh, okay, so this is the crazy part, okay, and this is what I want to talk about, even with it's just like from a physiological aspect. When I was singing tenor, and this was like in a chamber choir, Dr. McDonald, the chairman at Ave Maria University, he's not there anymore, but at the time when he was there, he would make me sing with the altos. I never really understood why. It's like when I saw that tenors would break at the C, I'm like, why don't they just, there's a shift. There's like an easy shift. I don't understand why they're capping out. And he would hear that and he's just like, you know, "Yvonne, can you please sing with the altos during this line because they need help?" Or "Yvonne, can," and then I think that's when the wheels started turning, like, wait, I could sing that and I know I could sing those girls all the way at the end. I could even get up to them. So I think as a tenor, I don't feel like I already have like a deep voice. Like I feel it's like a middle sounding voice. It's not too high, not too low, but I feel like it just sits kind of maybe a little above average high on the side, but it depends. And when I knew that that tenor voice wasn't like a real voice, like it's just like, yeah, it's chest, but I've in my lessons, this is where I want to get to. My teachers, and I mean every teacher to the teacher I am in now, Terrence, they sometimes cannot tell if I am head or if I'm in chest voice. There is almost a switch that they just can't understand because I think since my voice is so connected to the top, that it literally just sounds like one voice. There's certain countertenors I hear a break in a certain spot, and it's like, okay, now they're singing kind of like super heady, like, you know, instead of kind of like in that modal register or like in some type of like, you know, chest down. So when I noticed that the break wasn't where it was supposed to be, and then they would even tell me, you know, you have the same breaks as women, and when you are in the soprano register and that tessitura that sits there, you have the same issues that a lot of women have. And they were just like, this is interesting because I don't get a lot of countertenors that I hear that. It's like they still cap out kind of like as a tenor would. So I literally I could honestly say, Terrence, I've at this point now, like if I was to sing tenor, I would just feel like I'm singing like a really low alto note at this point.
I'll take that. Okay. So, what would a dream role be for you and why?
Ooh, this is difficult. One, because probably the opera I'm going to choose isn't an opera that's done a lot. So a lot of people won't probably get an idea to be like, oh, that's so great. Um, my dream role, and I know my dream role is to sing. It was Mozart. I'm not gonna lie. I have been so captivated by Mozart's early operas. And I know me and Terrence, we've always gone back on this, and you recently gave me your opinion. And I remember the text, and you're just like, this opera sucks.
Well, no, well, I'll let you tell them what it is, and I'll tell you why I said it.
So I was referred by another countertenor whom I shall not speak. You should be looking at, look at the role of Sifari in Mozart's Misurate. And I'm like, okay. So I literally, you know, me hungry for information, I'm like Googling like Mozart's Misurate. I really can't find it on IMSLP. All right. Baron writer, order, sin, mail, gotta look. So like, you know, I get the book, I look at the roll, and I'm just like, ooh, these high B flats. I'm like, yes, this is what I've been wanting. I've been wanting to kind of stretch it out up there and so, because he told me that a lot of countertenors do not take on the role of Sifari because it really is, I mean, if you don't got those continuous high B flats, I mean, especially like in the, I think it's the third to last aria, his Ciel Rigor aria, where he is just upset. I mean, he is pissed. And it's like, he is like sustaining these high B flats, doing some crazy runs, then, you know, having all these sequential measures and just beautiful music that I was just like, I want to just play Sifari. I want to be the first countertenor to play Sifari and to just raise our standard to really kind of showing that our voices are just more than just these lower voices, you know, that they come in all shapes and sizes. So Sifari it is, and I'm gonna be doing it one day. So whether I got to put it on myself.
Into existence. The reason I said I did not like Mitridate was from a togetherness point of view. Most of the arias happen by themselves, so you don't really sing. I like to sing with people. I like to do duets and trios, and that opera doesn't have. I think it has maybe 2 duets. So that's why it has some beautiful. Now, if you need some good some arias, it has some gorgeous arias for tenors, for sopranos, for high countertenors, even for I think there's a role that's a little slightly lower. But yeah, it's a good opera. I just personally wouldn't, not my cup of tea. But okay, so to piggyback on that question, what role would you, if you saw it on your contract, you were like, no, I'm not singing this. I don't like the role. It does not show off me vocally. I don't like the character. What role would you just say automatic no to?
My role that I would automatically say 100% no to is Julius Caesar. And I'm going to say this because for number one, And being a very, I don't want to say snobbish type Baroque person, because I am not. I will give you information for free. We could have a talk, a discussion, trust me. And I love to hear different outside opinions. But I have always been told, oh, you're a countertenor? Julius Caesar is where it's at. And I'm just like, I listen to the music. And mind you, it's a beautiful opera. I mean, there hasn't been an opera by Handel that I've ever thought that, oh, this is horrible. And when I'm listening to it, I'm saying to myself, Caesar isn't something that I would aspire to. I see that so many countertenors fight over it. To me, it's like it sits in that part of my voice where it sits a little lower. My voice I feel most comfortable singing. Give me a D, a E, a F, and a G. Then I feel like I'm alive. I feel like I could sing this all day, and then I'll give you the extension up and down if you need it. So when I hear countertenors sing it, to me, it just sounds like they're just in pain. Like it just, I just feel like as well with them too, they're probably a middle voice countertenor that has shifted their voices to sing that kind of lower in the register type music. And I say, let the mezzos have it. Give that to the mezzos. We'll take Tolomeo. So that's the thing. If I was to do Julius Caesar, I would aspire for sesto, but because of my stature, and I think because a lot of him, most of the time he's played as like a young child, which I think it should just still just, he's the son of, Pompeo, he just died. So it should be like a grieving almost in that warrior heroic type. But I guess like we take it in translation as kind of like a young boy. So I would aspire for sesto, but my heart tells me, especially after the Sorceress, Tolomeo. I feel like since I don't like the opera, let me be the one who's kind of wrecking things up. You know what I mean? Let me throw the wrench in and give you what you want.
So we're saying no to Giulio Cesare. Okay.
Goodbye.
What attracted you to Baroque opera?
Ooh. All right, so I'm gonna now sound very, very a little different now. I think we had to talk about this it was a few days ago.
Yeah,
and Baroque opera to me, and specifically the harpsichord, it was something, and I believe, of course, the first Baroque piece I've ever heard definitely was something adagio, or definitely something lento, something that was kind of like pulling at the heartstrings. And I think I was going through like some tumultuous time in my life. And I don't know where it was, maybe like something on my on a movie or something, like in movies they'll play classical music in the back and you're just like, ooh, that's pretty if you're not familiar with it. And for some reason, like when you get those thoughts in your mind, whatever I was going through and was just at a low, I just felt like, to me, like I heard God telling me at the time, everything's going to be okay, And while that music was playing, and then I felt such an attraction to that moment that it was almost like a wedding band, like, and my heart just went off like poof, like you will be in love with this moment, this scene. And I think about that moment, and still to this day, I still can't figure out what was playing. Maybe that's why I look for so much music, because I'm like, let me find out what that was. But I feel like I hear God in music, specifically in Baroque music. Like when I listen to Baroque music, I get a sense of longing, a sense of nostalgia. Like for some reason, this is so familial to me that even if, I don't get to where I want to be in life, or I don't make it, I feel like regardless, that will always have a home in my heart. Like I literally could be listening to some aria from the Baroque period, and even if the singer isn't, a great singer, the expression in the music will like drive me to tear up. And people are like, what's going on over there? Like I'm just like, it was just a pretty line, like, just let me have a moment. So it just feels like it is who I am. It is a major part of my identity. Like, don't get it twisted. Like I'll flip it up on you on my Spotify playlists. But Baroque, definitely, if you looked at my like songs on my Spotify, there is like over maybe like 4,000 Baroque pieces. Like you're just swiping up, 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 all Baroque. So yeah.
I think I don't know the first Baroque piece that I heard. It was probably something Bach, but uh opera, I'm gonna say it was either Semele or Xerxes. I can't remember which one it was, but I know
Mm-hmm.
it was one of the two. It's been so many years, I can't remember which one it was, but perfectly fine. Okay, moving right along. Do you feel there should be more Baroque opera performed?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I think that that's like a huge thing that this country, specifically America, because Europe is already catching on to the game. They're seeing that Baroque opera is more inclusive. You don't really need these huge kind of generic voices that a lot of the major opera houses are always in demand for. It's just a place of unique timbres, a place for people who feel as if, I don't really fit in to the status quo. Let me look at this type of repertoire because there is something here. And I just feel that we are lacking that specifically in our schools. We're lacking that in our history. Like I think that when people think of opera, like the first opera I remember them ever like playing at my middle school was Carmen. And I'm just like, what is she doing? Like, she reminds me of my Tia Margie, like, when when her friend used to come over. So I'm just like, like, what is she doing? And they're smoking, but I just think that my love of Baroque opera, and I just wish it just was more accessible. I feel like there's just a rich repertoire of music that's just waiting for all these unique voices we keep saying no to in our country, when they could be getting a whole bunch of yeses and truly finding who they are as singers, what they identify with, and know that there's a plethora of roles that unimaginable. Like think about the thing we're doing. Like you're about to be like Peneo, like the Greek god of rivers. Like you're literally about to take on a role of a god. So I just think that there's just more opportunity there that should be widespread.
And we're gonna do all you listeners, we're gonna do a full episode on Baroque operas and Baroque music, and Ivana's gonna catch us up on a lot of stuff, and we're gonna talk about that in contrast to classical operas and romantic operas. So don't worry, I know we'll go more in depth at a later time. So moving right along, do you feel that countertenors are misunderstood?
Yes. I feel, well, actually, I'm going to say yes and no. At the time when I found out I was a countertenor, yes. I've had, I want to say about a handful of people who ask me why I sing the way I do. As if I am pretending, as if I am just doing it for attention. Um, it literally, it's a touchy subject. I mean, I'm not so much offended by it, but I feel that a lot of countertenors would have to probably say yes, that it is something that we are misunderstood, especially in our community, because I think that how most singers have rivalries, like either a soprano or a mezzo. So it's like either, especially with a mezzo and an extension, she's like, I could sing you, and I could sing your low notes. It's kind of this competitive nature, and I think with countertenors, we really don't fit into kind of competing with anyone. And I don't even want to say with the mezzos, is because it is such a unique voice. It is such a voice that I feel has been misunderstood. But I feel like there needs to be more education on countertenors amongst our peers and amongst people in our industry.
I most definitely agree. I think within recent years, this generation and our serving of countertenors that we have now is very different, because 20, 30 years ago, You know, the countertenors that we had, they weren't singing high. They weren't singing, you know. Now I don't know if they wanted to and weren't given the opportunity, but they weren't singing high. The
Mm.
first countertenor I ever heard sing like high like that, I told you when we were when I was in Lake George and we
Mm-hmm.
were doing A Midsummer's Night Dream. He came out with Titania and went up to a high A and then followed with a high B flat, and I was like, whoa. Um, but outside of him, maybe David Daniels started to,
Oh
play
yes.
with
Oh,
the register.
you're talking about Robert Crow.
Yeah, Robert Crock, I can't remember his name. But yeah,
Yes,
maybe
Robert
David
and
Daniels played with the register a little bit. But yeah,
mm-hmm.
this generation that we have now, oh, it's I mean, these voices are just gorgeous and they sit high without strain. We have
Mm-hmm.
countertenor sopranos, we have countertenor mezzos, we have countertenor altos. It's just a beautiful thing. Honestly, I don't think, we've had this group of countertenors that sang this way in a long time.
Yeah, I think that we definitely, and I know I do, I definitely have a sense of respect, and I do feel like, specifically, even just to backtrack a little bit, about Robert Crow. It's so funny that you got to experience him in a performance, but I personally, and I want to say thank you, Robert, if you listen to this. Robert Crow and I exchanged messages, like, there was like one year, it was almost as if like a dear friend. Like, someone, it almost made me feel, and Robert, I really do hope you do hear this. It almost made me feel kind of like that love that like Farinelli and Mestasio had. Like that brotherly kind of caro amico, like you're my best, my dear friend. And whenever I needed advice, he's the one who pushed me onto Pierre Tozzi's 17th century, 18th century book on florid singing and technique. And he was just always pumping knowledge in me. Like, look at this, look at that, to the point where he actually tried to get me a gig with him, performing some oratorio with Boston at one point, but I was in Florida at the time. It was a huge mess and I was broke. So I couldn't take that opportunity. But these countertenors of today, we have a lot to be grateful for. And I know for a fact, even Mr. Reagan, I really didn't get a chance to get to talk to him, Brian Asawa, before he passed, but John Holiday, um, these countertenors that I admire and look up to, even if we share different timbres, even if we share different size voices, um, you are my brothers, whether you guys like it or not. Like, we are the ones, and there's such a small group of us holding these torches to kind of, say, hey, we're at the table too. We should be a respected voice just like anyone else. We owe a great debt to you. And I want to also say thank you, you know. Thank you. We need you. We needed you. We still continue to need you. And, I know other countertenor colleagues of mine, I feel I have a duty to grab the next ones behind me, because the way that they're coming, I'm sorry, mezzos, but you will be out of business.
No, we can't put the mezzos out of business.
I know. I love you, ladies. I love you, ladies. Even though you don't like me, I love you, ladies.
That was funny. Okay, so moving along, well, kind of the same area of topic. If you had to pick three, who would be your top three countertenors throughout,
Ooh.
span of time? And we can't, no Farinelli, no, that's cheating. Well, he's a
Well, okay.
castrato anyway, right? He was a
Yeah, he's a
castrato.
castrato. It's okay. I was just like, ooh, where he at? I got some questions there. um, I would have to say my first countertenor that I would have to say is my top, number one top right now, would have to be still Derek Reagan. And I'm going to tell you why. I really want to spend time on this. Even though I was supposed to have lunch with Derek and we never was able to have it. Derek, you still owe me a lunch date. I'm still waiting. Thank
Chick-fil-A,
you, Derek.
please.
I don't want no Chick-fil-A. He looked like he eating healthy. He looking good too,
Well, just
Derek.
bring me a
Skin
frosted
glowing.
lemonade. Just bring me a frosted lemonade. That's all I want.
I would have to say Mr. Reagan because one, being a countertenor of color and traveling to Europe and becoming and you being this star revival. Like I understand like Alfred Deller gets a lot of like, credit like, oh, Alfred Deller, who I do not think he was a real countertenor. That's another story. But Derek brought life. It was almost as if Baroque was just a blank slate, black and white. And Derek came and just touched it and it blossomed into a painting. And I say this because music started getting pumped out like fast with Derek. Like Derek ended up getting a movie deal for Farinelli, which is an awesome movie. And when I would look for Baroque repertoire, his voice was always the one I was always attracted to because I'm like, oh my gosh, like he has a colorful voice. I have a colorful voice because unfortunately, and this is all tea, all shade, and I'll probably get, some slack for it, but our non-colored countertenors of color, they don't, I feel, we have different sounds. I'll just say that. We have different sounds. Just like, and it wasn't something that I personally was attracted to at the time. Like, James Bowman, Michael Chance. There were some, sometimes a little color would come out, but it was just very straight tony to me. Very, just not my style of music. I'm not taking any credit from them. They were amazing for the things that they've done, and we stand on their shoulders too, and they deserve, their flowers as well. But Derek would have to be my number one, because Derek is what pulled me in. And then my next countertenor is also someone who was very kind to me and referred information to me and always responded to me, is Mr. John Holliday. John Holliday, when I saw John Holliday, I was so attracted to that voice. Like I literally was like, I want to be just like John Holliday. Like I literally, and mind you, like the school I was going to, predominantly Catholic, like they're showing me like, no, more Alfred Deller. And I'm like, I am not singing that. That's like a Thanksgiving turkey, just, she know it's a time. But, just, like she's just like, oh, let's get rid of me. But I think that John Holliday would always respond to my messages if I needed help or if I needed some type of guidance. And I feel like it was just so much more than just ego that a lot of singers fall into those traps of ego. And I could see that when I see John perform, I know he loves what he's doing. It's like, I know those smiles. I know those, that when you're relishing in something and that artistry, it's like, it's so organic. So John Holliday, you helped me a lot too. You really inspired me, and you still continue to inspire me, and you always will. So, you are appreciated. And my third countertenor would have to be, this is difficult. Actually, I'm going to give it to my boy, Randall Wong. Randy Wong, who some people know him by. He is a countertenor of a different caliber. He is the first countertenor, in my opinion, to really do there's a category of Vivaldi soprano cantatas, and I actually own the scores. I actually have been working on them to actually take on those. I mean, there's a high D, there's B flats everywhere, high C's everywhere, and there's actually a recording of him. If you guys go on Spotify and you type in Randall Wong and type in like his name, go to his Vivaldi album and tell me that you're just like, wow, I've never heard a countertenor like this. And him being of Asian descent, I noticed that the Asian countertenors kind of have a color to them too. It's like a unique timbre, kind of silvery to me sometimes, with like a shimmer but then kind of, it's different. It's of a different color. And I would love to see so many more. And I wish, like, we just really just had, I'm waiting for more countertenors of different ethnicities to really show up, because right now I feel like it's either you're one or the other. It's either like you're, a countertenor that is of color and a countertenor that's not. And I wish I could see more of my countertenors of color on stage. There's there's some out there who needs to be heard and should have already been implemented with their pictures at the Metropolitan Opera for their one Baroque opera every 50 years.
Oh, we're gonna leave that alone. Where do you see yourself in the next year?
Ooh, I see myself finally in Mexico getting some sun out of Corona-19. No, actually.
Hopefully.
Where I see myself in the next year is definitely in a place where I am more vocally confident. I feel like I would have a few performances under my belt with something at least. And I think I see myself maybe preparing going to graduate school, even though I kind of really don't want to go because I'm tired of like the academic side of it. Like, just let me sing. But that is something still that I'm considering, because I really do, I think when I'm older, I kind of maybe want to fall into the realms of musicology, but maybe just really being on like a historian level of like a Baroque historian and specialist and a curator and archivist. So definitely where I will be attending all those other Baroque performances when I'm old. And when I sit down, people are going to know who I am. They're going to be like, oh, he's here. Oh, we better make sure that the gestures are together. We better make sure that, it is,
yes.
Better make sure that our coloratura is clean and we're delivering emotionally and provoking the pathetique in everyone, taking out, those worries of the day that you had. And at that moment, briefly, you weren't on earth. You were where you were in that opera house, in that scene of the, as a spectator, you see everything. You are in that opera. You are included. So, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so transition. How did you feel about your recent victory in singing The Sorceress and Mr. Purcell's Dido and Arias?
Well, I felt amazing. Number one. I would like to give another shout out to Mrs. Nell Sniders, because
yes, Nell, we love you, Nell.
We love you, Nell. You already, and Nell, I know if you've listened to it this far, I know for a fact you're just like, oh no, why did he do it? Because Nell, you are amazing.
Very much.
This was my first opera, my first opera. I've done scenes before, but I'm talking about like from the start of an overture to the end of a chorus. So I literally was nervous. I was scared because I haven't performed on stage in like years and been around people in years. I'm just like in that type of environment. And meeting Nell, I knew who she was because I would follow Apollo's Fire, which is an amazing Baroque ensemble. And I hope to soon be singing with one day if you want to kind of come my way. But, I definitely shout out to Apollo's Fire and Jeanette Sorrell. I love you. You don't know yet, but we're best friends in my head. I'm a good cook. I really was just in a place of, this is happening. This is gonna, be what I've wanted for so long. So I feel still on a high. Like I literally, right now beneath this laptop is my Dido poster. And I'm like looking at Dido right now.
Mine is on the wall. Mine is literally right there on the wall.
Yeah, no, I still have to frame mine. Like I'm like literally it's literally covered in plastic right now because I'm just like, this is not messing up.
I'll put mine up and then I'm gonna frame the program.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna do mine that
Yeah,
way.
no, I literally, because I just want to, and then of course, my my roots now on my first performance is tied to Aaron Copland School of Music, whether I like it or not. Which means that down the line, if Aaron Copland School of Music, and I'm talking about the school, needs assistance for me with that music program, I would be more than willing to help those students get out of there with some more knowledge and a more deeper love and appreciation for their craft. So yeah.
Perfecto. So right now we're actually gonna take a quick listen to hear Yvonne in The Sorceress. Alrighty.
Expulsion must be to storm on the ocean. Our expulsion must be to storm on the ocean. From the ruin of all the pleasures we borrow.
All right, so we are back. And we're getting down to the wire. So if you were stuck on an island,
Ooh.
you could only bring one CD. Now, mind you, one CD. You can't listen to any other music. And no, don't cheat. No burning CDs. None of that. Okay.
Wait, I can't wait. Wait, you kind of phased out. What can I bring? Because this is crazy.
You can only bring one CD, right?
Uh-huh.
So no burning CDs to make custom tracks. None of that. So it has to be the CD or the album as is. Which one? Only one would it be?
All right, I'm going to tell you this because this is the first thing that literally came to my mind. One, I don't even remember what CDs look like. Two,
Stop.
if I had to think, the last thing that I remember on a CD is like my mom's Montel Jordan CD, like his Let's Ride video.
It could be an album. It doesn't have to be a CD. It can be like streamed whatever.
Like for I'm listening, like, and I'm on this. How long am I on this island?
Forever, no coming back.
So I'm gonna die. Is there sustenance at least?
If you know how to chop trees down and kill animals.
All right, and I had to keep listening to this on replay on the island.
Only thing you don't have to listen to it on replay, but that's the only, outside of you creating your own music, that's the only music you have access to.
Oh, that's hard. I definitely need something I could dance to, because I'll be damned if I'm about to be on this island and I'm listening to something. I'm sorry about, like I said, Baroque is my heart, but not this time. Goodbye. You girls to the side. No, I honestly would have to. No, it can't be anything present, because I still need to kind of have some emotional feel to it. I would say. Wow, that's hard. My mind is saying Tina Marie.
Okay.
I don't know. My mom has always been like a big Tina Marie fan. And me growing up, I always used to think she was black. I'm like, ooh, who this black lady? Who is she? She got the high notes, and that's that opera stuff. I'm like, ooh, okay, all right, Tina. Her La Donna album, like literally, my mom used to ask that, and I was right beside her, like, all right, mom, where we going?
Okay, so Tina Marie it is. And
Yes.
lastly, what advice would you give to an up-and-coming countertenor? Any words of encouragement? What to look out for? What to not look out for? What would you tell them?
I would say to dig. Dig for information on repertoire and listen to what other countertenors sound like, who do not embrace that sound as your own. Get an idea in your head when you listen to it and let it sit. And then you go in and then find your sound. Don't be construed to what you hear. Because I feel like with any voice, whether you're a soprano or a tenor or a bass, you sometimes lose your sound by trying to sound like other sounds that you hear. And that's why I feel there's so much struggle, is that we have a whole bunch of voices negating from what they actually sound like. And just add in time. I feel it's the ones who take that time to figure out what they like, what they don't like, what they aspire to do with that. I think it should be, I think a voice teacher should be there to guide for direction. But I think that certain countertenors that specifically sing in a higher tessitura should not have to be subjected to singing the standard rep. That's why one of my goals too is to finally create a series of countertenor anthologies, because I feel like out of the voice types all have their anthologies, but for countertenors, it's kind of like we have to kind of go through a mezzo book or maybe a soprano book to kind of find repertoire. And I think that if we have a book that's already prepared with roles and things that they should be looking at, and roles that they should be considered kind of taking the reins back on, and kind of putting countertenors on the market with those roles, so that there could be some type of bridge between countertenors and other singers. But that young countertenor would have to know as well too that you are a unique voice, but you are not, you are a voice. You're a voice like anybody else's voice. It's just, it messes with people's minds sometimes. And I think that's what opera is supposed to do. It's supposed to have the wheels turning. Because just to our sister contraltos, think about, I always thought about do they get the same flack of they sound like a man in certain parts, or they're it's I don't feel that they get that. And that's what kind of confuses me, because I'm just even if you're thinking it in some gender idea or concept, it's just it makes me think sometimes, kind of is there just some blatant discrimination for just men singing high? Where does that come from? Is there something rooted in even our industry that we're kind of not paying attention to from this stigma, or and I feel too, young countertenors gotta know, you gotta have thick skin. You have to have thick skin. You already know people are going to sit there and critique you a little bit harder, because especially with now the caliber that's coming out with countertenors, they got some shoes to fill. They're gonna have some shoes to fill. But I think that the more that they listen to, and the more that our societies kind of allow kids, and especially that are in a path for classical music, to let them hear all these different types of voice qualities and vocal qualities, that'll still bring and kind of make this voice that we've heard that was eensy weeny, kind of being able to sing through huge orchestras. I want to see a countertenor singing Wagner. I want to see a countertenor singing Rienzi. I've had friends telling me that I should look at the role because of how piercing the sound is. And that's what I would say. I would just say dig for information. You'll find it. You'll always find it. If you love it, you'll find it.
Agreed. Well, all right, ladies and gents, we are done with our first episode. Feel free, leave comments, ideas, all of that good stuff. There's definitely more to come. We don't have an exact schedule of when we're going to record, because both of our schedules are kind of all over the place. But definitely you'll be getting some more episodes soon, and very soon. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe, stay blessed. And just because your day is messed up, don't go around messing up somebody else's day. Okay?
Please don't. Yeah.